Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Lobby with Mary Kay Cabot, and we are back. A Hey Mary Kay edition of the podcast as we hit Bengals week. It is officially football season. It's here, Mary Kay, this long off season, this long summer, this long draft process. We're finally here. I'm always reminded, there's an NBA podcast I listen to, Zach Lowe, and he always says in the finals, this is why we do all this, for teams to get to the NBA Finals. Well, this is why we do all this draft and offseason and training camp stuff, to finally get to some real football games. And I feel like we've reached a point where we need some real football games. We need something to happen to kind of keep all of this Browns discussion moving forward.
We really do. And I can't believe that it's here. It's exciting. It's fun to see what it's going to be all about. And I think that is the best part about the opener is you get to finally see the Browns put that football team out on the grass and see what the new edition of the team is going to look like. And there are so many unknowns this season. We have no idea what this new offense is going to look like. We don't know how Joe Flacco is going to play. We don't know how he's going to connect necessarily with Jerry Jeudy. We don't know what the running game is going to be like without Quinshon Judkins. We don't know if the defense really is going to return to its 2023 form. There are so many question marks. There's so many young guys on this team. I think the roster has 12 rookies on it. So just so many things to find out when we show up. And I think what makes this opener so much more fun than some others is the fact that it is against an AFC North rival. I mean, it's cool to open up against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and the gang. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's against an AFC North rival, and it's against one that, it's not the Ravens. They get the Ravens week 2. But it's against a team that, obviously the Bengals have won 4 of the last 5 against the Browns, but the Browns are usually competitive with Cincinnati. So that kind of lets people dream a little bit going into this week 1 opener. So let's start there. Dave Barnes in Richmond, Virginia, going to lead us off. Hey, Mary Kay. Nationally and even some locally, people see the Browns as having no shot this year. Is there anything they're missing about this team that could potentially lead to a successful season? And just by success, he means making the playoffs.
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to make the playoffs, but I think that they should be able to keep things interesting, or they might be able to keep things interesting because they are built tough through the lines. They've got a tough defensive line and they've got a tough offensive line. And when you have that, then it's kind of anything can happen. And I've seen some really good things out of the defensive line this whole entire summer. I think Miles, based on what he went through in the offseason with his trade demand and getting the $40 million a year contract, I think he's going to be playing with his hair on fire. I think he's got something to prove. I think he knows that a lot of fans jumped off of his bandwagon. He wants to get them back on. He wants to put this team on his back and carry it somewhere. Who knows where he can take it? But he has said numerous times, this team will go as I go. And I think Jim Schwartz feels that way too. So if Miles can put on that Superman cape and be Superman this season, then I think the defense has a chance to get back to being pretty good. And then when you move over to the offensive side of the ball, once again, I mean, you've got a good and mostly healthy offensive line now, which they didn't have that last year. They did not have that in the first 6 games of the season. Nobody wants to look, or a lot of people don't want to look at all of the dysfunction that was going on in the first part of last season, but certainly injuries on the offensive line were a very, very big part of it. Now they're healthy. The only question mark on the offensive line really at this point is how is DeJuan Jones going to do at left tackle? Of course, that's a big, big question mark, but I think they're prepared to give him some help if he needs it and give him the opportunity to kind of grow into the position a little bit. So I think if you had to point to something tangible, a reason why this team might be able to win some games, I think it's the offensive line and the defensive line.
So that was my thought too, just as I listened to people talk about, all these previews and things like that across the NFL, but I don't think people quite understand how good this defensive line could be. And we got to see it in Philadelphia in those joint practices. We saw Myles Garrett just basically grind Philadelphia's offense to a halt with how he played in those practices. And just this line as a whole, with Mason Graham now in the middle, he was really good all camp and all summer. Second edge rush, still some questions there, but there's at least some promise with Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire. Maybe you can you put something together with 3 or 4 guys over there. So that's still a question mark once we get to real games. But I think if this team surprises people, it's going to be because this defensive line lives up to what it has been, or lives up to what we think it could be. And I just feel like that's, when the question is, what do we think people might be missing? I just don't hear anybody talking about that. You'll hear them talk about Myles Garrett maybe, but you don't hear people talking about this line as a whole. I think it's relatively unknown outside of Cleveland. But I think what we've watched all summer is a group that could be pretty dominant.
Yeah, and we haven't even seen it all come together yet, because at some point Mike Hall is going to join these guys on the football field. So you're going to have him in the middle there with Mason Graham, who had a really, really nice summer. And then you've got Joe Shoyinka over there, who also can be part of that rotation on the other side. So even though they don't necessarily have a surefire second double-digit sacker, I think you have some guys that are going to be able to get close. And we've seen Alex Wright get 5 sacks. So I think he can get in the 8-9 range potentially. And with what's going on in the middle of the defense, I think that is going to leave some other guys open for some possibilities and with some one-on-one matchups. So I do think that the defensive line is going to come out just gangbusters on Sunday. And I think they're going to be so fired up for this game. I think that they are really excited and eager to try to shut down Joe Burrow. I think he's going to have to really get rid of the ball quickly, play some kind of a short game, be ready to make some of those checkdowns. And they're going to have to probably run the ball as well, too, because I just think that this defensive line, I kind of think it's going to be as advertised this year. And now there are going to be some issues potentially in the secondary because they're into their depth a little bit in the secondary. But I think that they should be pretty stout at most other positions defensively, especially the line. And I think that that's going to show out this weekend.
Yeah, and I think there's concern too. I mean, they're counting a lot on a couple of rookies, obviously Mason Graham and then Carson Schlesinger in the middle at linebacker. If you were to lose one of those two guys, especially Carson, because there just isn't a lot else at linebacker. So they're counting a lot on 2 rookies, and that can be a big ask for them to play. We're going to have you play 60 snaps for 17 weeks. You've got to think they might wear down a little bit at some point, but at least early in the season, if you've got Mason out there, if you've got Carson Schlesinger out there, and then you've got the rest of that defensive line kind of all working hand in hand, I think this defense can hold up.
Yeah, and if they don't find a way to solve the Myles Garrett puzzle on Sunday, it's going to be a long afternoon for Joe Burrow. They have got to chip him, double team him, whatever they have to do. And if they can't do that, then they're not going to be able to accomplish the things that they want to on offense, because Joe Burrow is going to be under siege. Myles is going to be at home. He gets fired up at home, of course. He's going to want to get those fans back on his side. He's going to want to get off to a strong start to the season. He's already set his bar at Super Bowl and NFL Defensive Player of the Year. And then, of course, I just wrote about today, once again, Jim Schwartz saying that he thinks he should be aiming for NFL MVP. If he's going to do any of those kinds of things, he's going to want to get off to a really, really strong start. So I think you're just going to see a crazy Myles game with multiple sacks and maybe a couple of forced turnovers. I just think unless they really scheme and game plan to take him out or shut him down to the extent that they can, I think he can take over this game.
Okay, Jeff Sapisi in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Hey, Mary Kay, after the first 4 games of the season, what will success look like for the Browns?
Well, it's going to be a tough start to the season from a schedule standpoint. We already know that. It's going to be really, really challenging and difficult. I do think that they can win this first game because of what I've been talking about here with Myles and with Denzel on Jamar and with how this defense is going to come out really, really fired up. And I think they're going to play fast and strong right out of the gate. So I think they can probably get this one, even though that might sound crazy to some people. I just feel like the matchups are going to be in the Browns' favor from the defensive line standpoint and their offensive line. So if they start 1-0, I think that'll be good. I think it'll be difficult to go into Baltimore and win that game. So that's probably going to be at least a 1-1 situation. And then then they've got 3 straight NFC North playoff teams that they are facing. And that's certainly going to be a challenge. So you've got Micah Parsons coming into town now in week 3. That's a really good defense. That's going to be tough. I think Jordan Love is probably going to have a really good season and build on what he did last year. I would say 2-2 would be a successful first 4 games of the season.
I would too, because I mean, honestly, 2-2 when you're playing the Bengals, the Ravens, the Packers, and the Lions would be that means you beat somebody you weren't supposed to beat, right?
Yep.
Like, because I'm with, like, if they beat Cincinnati, I don't think it would be a shock. I don't know if I'm going to pick them to win this game on Sunday yet or not, but if they beat the Bengals at home, that's not like, oh my God, I can't believe the Browns beat Cincinnati. That's kind of what the Browns do sometimes, and that's sort of what the Bengals do early in the season as they lose. I mean, they lost to the Patriots last year in week 1. So it wouldn't be a shock. But then you get into, like you said, you got to go to Baltimore. That's going to be a really tough game. Maybe a little Joe Flacco revenge game there. But Green Bay, really good. Detroit, I mean, the only question with Detroit is just, is some of the brain drain there from losing both of their coordinators to head coaching jobs. But if they pick up right where they left off, they're going to be a great team. And then you've got this, like, we've talked about it. Minnesota might be beatable, right? Because we don't know what JJ McCarthy is. Pittsburgh is good, but the Browns can compete against Pittsburgh. But just the way the schedule is set up, Minnesota's going to be over there already for a week. And then you're coming home off of a game in London to play at Pittsburgh, who has their bye the week before. Like, those 2 games right there really are just set up for the Browns to, like, even if they surprise people, those are 2 tough games. So I don't want to put too much emphasis on this Bengals game, but, like, you've got to try to do everything you can in your power to win this football game, because it gets really, really hard after this for a lot of different reasons.
It really does. And it starts, then you roll right into the 5 out of 6 on the road. That includes the London game, but 5 out of 6 on the road is not going to be easy at all, no matter how you slice that. And again, they don't have Quinshon right now, so they don't really necessarily have their power running game to rely on, so that they can make sure they're possessing the ball and winning that battle of time of possession. Having said all that, if they can win the turnover battle in most of these games or some of these games, then they can win some football games. It's the great equalizer. If you're taking the ball away and you're not turning it over, then you can win some football games. If you're going to be turning the ball over and you're not taking it away like they did last year, then it's good night, Irene. It's not going to happen for you. So that's got to be the point of emphasis, because it doesn't matter what you do in the running game. It doesn't matter what you do in the passing game if you are turning the ball over. So that's got to be job number 1 for them. But it is going to be a really, really tough start to the season. And we don't know what Joe Flacco is going to be yet this year. We don't know if he's going to be anywhere close to the Joe Flacco that went 4-1 down the stretch for the Cleveland Browns in 2023. It's a different ball game. It's a different Joe. It's a different set of defenses. And we just don't know what to expect from him yet.
So let's get to a Joe Flacco question then, since you just brought him up. This comes from Danny in Boulder, Colorado, by way of Painesville. Hey, Mary Kay, does it look to you like Joe Flacco has a better grasp of the offense now that he's had the benefit of a full training camp, unlike his last stint here? And I do think the Flacco discussion is interesting because, look, he's 2 years older now. Even after that run a couple years ago, it's not like teams were beating down the door to sign him. He ended up going to be a backup in Indianapolis. And then this offseason, people, again, weren't exactly beating down the door to sign Joe Flacco. So I do think, you can certainly be cautiously optimistic about Joe, but also let's see if this looks close to what it was a couple of years ago.
Right. And I think here's the thing to remember with Joe. In his last 4 starts in Indianapolis, he turned the ball over 9 times. And that was 6 interceptions and 3 lost fumbles. If a team can identify a weakness in your offensive line, and we don't know if there's going to be one, we don't know if it's going to be DeJuan Jones or if he's going to hold up just fine there, or if he's going to need help or whatever the case may be. But if they can find a weakness somewhere on the offensive line and get to Joe Flacco and try to get the ball out of his hand, that would be something as a defensive coordinator that you would be trying to do. That would be a strategy and a good part of your game plan, because Joe has proven to be somewhat vulnerable to that right now, to the sack and to the sack fumble. And so that's what they have to watch out for, because once again, he is 2 years older now, and football years are like dog years. Sometimes it's like you age 4, 5, 6 years in one football year. We don't know if that's happened with Joe. He's looked good to us, but we haven't really seen him in any real meaningful football activity, or at least not much. So we don't know yet what the Bengals are planning on doing to him and how they're going to try to attack him. We don't know yet what the Ravens are planning to do, and then all of those NFC North defenses. And if he doesn't hold up, and if he is turning the ball over, then he's going to be replaced by Dylan Gabriel sooner than later. So that's job number one for him. He's got to be able to move out of the way if necessary. He's got to be able to step up. He's got to be able to slide and shift and roll out, and he's got to be able to move. And if he can't move and he's a sitting duck and he's losing the ball, then they're not going to keep him in there. Because as it is, this is a football team that wants to use quarterback movement. That was going to be the game plan. That's what they had in mind for Kenny Pickett and for Dylan Gabriel. Lots of movement, lots of keepers, some RPOs, some designed runs. And they can't do those things with Joe Flacco. Now, what he is going to give you, he's going to give you that beautiful downfield pass, that downfield strike. And if he can do that and he has the time to do that, then he'll be able to keep his job. If he's throwing the ball downfield to Jerry Jeudy and Isaiah Bond, who's got some great speed to add now, to David Njoku and all of these guys, if he can make those big explosive plays, that will make up for some of the other stuff. But he's going to have to do that and then also just not throw it to the other team.
Yeah, and again, this kind of goes back to the schedule game. Like, you're opening up with the ideal opponent. The Cincinnati defense might just be bad. Like, they might not be able to create the kind of pressure they need to kind of fluster Joe and fluster this offense. But then you get into Baltimore, who just always creates pressure no matter what. And they have one of the best safeties in the league as well. Green Bay, you mentioned. Micah Parsons is there now. That's a really good defense. Detroit has Aiden Hutchinson. That's a really good defense when it's healthy. So it is a situation where the Browns might look really good on Sunday, and that would be great. But also it'll just sort of be like, okay, now let's see when we get into the real meat of this, what it looks like. But it is the ideal opening opponent, I think. I don't know if Cincinnati has the kryptonite for like Joe Flacco and what the Browns want to do. Some of these teams after Cincinnati might. I don't know if the Bengals do. Now, obviously, Trey Hendrickson is back in the fold. That helps them. But I don't know how good that defense is going to be.
Yeah, so, I mean, this one is one that I think we can actually, with a straight face, discuss the fact that we think the Browns can win this football game, right? I mean, we can say that. And that is very realistic, even though, as you mentioned, the Bengals have won 4 of the last 5. It's Joe Burrow. They have this explosive offense. They've got Jamar. They've got T. They've got what they need to score points. But there are enough other things going on matchup-wise in this game that you start to think, okay, maybe, just maybe, they can start strong out of the gate and steal one here. But then you start to look ahead a little bit and it gets a little dicier. And if you have these defenses that are just going to come after Joe and attack, I mean, there just aren't that many guys like him left in the NFL where they can't really move much. So they're going to try to exploit that as a weakness, especially the Ravens. And then the other thing to consider is there are some young guys on this offense too, both at running back, at wide receiver, and at tight end. There are young skill players. So you put them up against some of these veteran defenders, and it can get tough. I mean, this could be a baptism by fire when some of these young guys like an Isaiah Bond, a Dylan Sampson, a Harold Fannin go in there and have to work against that noise that they're going to face in Baltimore and against those veteran defenders who are going to take it up a notch and almost be playing at a playoff clip in that game, knowing that this is an AFC North game and knowing that Joe Flacco is coming back there. So they're going to be fired up for that game. And so I think the youth on offense is going to be something to watch here.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that running back situation. This comes from Terry in Strongsville. Hey, Mary Kay, I'm worried about the quality of the running back room. Jerome Ford was not greatly effective last year. What do you think?
Well, Jerome actually did a nice job. I thought he got better as the season went along, and he did rush for 818 yards last year and led the Browns with that. So I do think he's better than some people think that he is. He's not the power workhorse back that they wanted, that they were hoping that Quinshon would be as the heir apparent to Nick Chubb. But Jerome Ford is a good running back in his own right. And if you have to rely on him for a few weeks, I don't think that's going to be the absolute worst thing in the world. You got the good change up there with Dylan Sampson coming in on third down, catching the ball, being shifty, and all those kinds of things. And then you have now Raheem Rocket Sanders. So he's a big dude. He can give you that goal line punch when you need it. He can give you the short yardage beef when you need it. So I think they'll be okay. It's not what it was supposed to be, but I think they can accomplish the running game effectively until Quinshon gets back.
Yeah, I think I disagree with our texter a little bit here too. I think Jerome Ford is fine. Again, like you said, he's not. Do you want Jerome Ford to be your featured back for 17 weeks? Probably not. But Jerome Ford is a good player. He's a little bit of a chess piece. Dylan Sampson, it seems like they want to try and keep him in that role that they had envisioned for him. So they're not really shifting him around a lot. We'll see what they do with him on Sunday. But I think this team can get the run game going with that offensive line. I know they believe that like scheme is just as important as back. Like if you have a Nick Chubb, that changes things, right? If you have that elite back. But I do think there is a belief there that they can get this running game moving, not with any kind of like just interchangeable back. But I think if they can, whether it's Jerome or Dylan Sampson or even Rocket, whoever it is, I think they feel like they can get this running game going effectively enough, even if Quinshon's not out there.
Yeah, and I think also that they will supplement the running game with some end arounds and some jet sweeps and some things like that as well. Now, of course, when Joe is in there, you're not going to have the running quarterback that you would have had if you had Kenny, or to a certain extent, if you have Dylan in there. But they have other ways to effectively utilize the ground. And that, once again, would be some jet sweeps and some end arounds and things like that. We saw some of those things in preseason. And we know that everybody's committed to the blocking game, and the receivers are willing to stick their nose in there and block, like Cedric Tillman. He enjoys doing that. So, David Njoku loves to block. So I think you'll see that kind of thing going on as well. And that will be just a different kind of change up.
Yeah, and we know they love that tight end screen game too. We're going to see a heavy dose of Joe throwing screens to David Njoku, throwing screens to Harold Fannin. So some of that stuff is going to kind of replicate the run game a little bit as well. So I think they'll figure it out. It might not be amazing. It might not be this super dynamic run game until Quinshon gets back, but I think they'll, like you were kind of getting at there, I think they'll find ways to generate some of those yards on first and second down to kind of set up some of those manageable third downs. But of course, this leads to the question about Quinshon Judkins. I know it's just sort of one of those things, like everybody's just in a holding pattern here, but realistically, when do you think he'll be back? And then on top of that, how long is that ramp up for him, do you think?
These are good questions. I sort of feel like something could happen this week from a movement standpoint. I don't know if he will be coming in, practicing, and going and playing in the game, but I feel like something's going to happen. Like we're going to hear something from the NFL, or we're going to hear something about the contract, or we're going to hear about both of those things. I feel like there will be some kind of Quinshon news this week. I could be wrong, because I'm guessing, I have to be completely honest about this, is the fact that I just don't really know what's going on with Quinshon. And if you see the updates that I've done on him, the only thing that I can say for sure about Quinshon is that the NFL, at least as of a couple days ago, was still reviewing his case. And that was the only piece of information that I could get out of anybody. The Browns are mum. You try to even bring up his name with anybody, and everybody goes blank. It doesn't matter if it's Andrew. It doesn't matter if it's Kevin Stefanski or Catherine Hickman or Glenn Cook, the assistant GMs. Nobody will utter a word about Quinshon. It's almost like everybody has been told, they've been handed a script, and the script is, we have no update. We have no update. We have no update. We have no update. Right? It's weird.
It's really weird. And it's one of those things that when all is said and done, maybe it's not going to matter, but it is one of those things that you just kind of point out, like, this is weird that everyone is just saying exactly what you said. No update.
No update. I don't get it, because if it's a contract issue, somebody could say something like, we just have some things we need to work through, and we're hopeful we can do that over the next few weeks. Something, anything. Or there are a lot of moving parts to this story, and it's complicated. And therefore, we, just have to see how some things shake out before we can pull it all together. But once again, we're hopeful that we'll see him around these parts in the next few weeks. Oh, no, 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 no. It's shrouded in mystery to the point where it gets the wheels churning and where you start wondering, what weird thing is happening here? What weird thing is going on? I mean, we already know that he had a domestic battery charge against him, but that's been dropped. Yes, the league is investigating it, but the radio silence on Quinshon Judkins is lending itself to like really conjuring up in your mind what could possibly be going on with him.
Right. And this is one of those areas where, I mean, sometimes they are so stubborn about communicating. Like they're just so stubborn about not wanting to say anything, not wanting to make a headline, that you just leave all of this room for speculation. And like maybe they don't care in that building, but it's just one of those things where it's like, could you just communicate a little? Could you just figure out a way to get a message out there so that people could stop sitting here wondering like, why hasn't he signed yet? Is there some kind of chance that maybe he won't be a Cleveland Brown? Is there some kind, like, where is he? When is he going to play? When, like, I know they can't say a lot, but man, sometimes just giving up something can help at least calm the waters a little.
Absolutely. There's got to be something that you can say that would satisfy the masses. First of all, you've got tons of fantasy football players out there that want to know if they should be drafting Quinshon Judkins. So that's one thing. Not that you need to run your business wondering how everyone's fantasy football team is doing, but just from a fan standpoint and a media standpoint, just give a little bit of something. Now, the only thing that we've gotten coming from a team official about Quinshon happened on July 29th when Jimmy Haslam said, "We are cautiously optimistic that he will play for us this season." That is the only piece of information that we have gotten from the team. Everything else has been no update, no update, no update. And it just has me wondering, what in heaven's name is going on with this young man?
Right. And like, it makes Mary Kay, do you have a fantasy football draft tonight? Is that what's going on?
No, but I'm getting tons of questions.
I know, right? Listen, it's big business. I haven't played in a few years, but it is big business. It's one of the reasons the NFL is so popular. So like, yeah, people want to know what's going on with this guy.
Yes.
But the other part of this too is like, okay, so let's say he shows up tomorrow and signs his contract. We've talked about this. It's hard. I think even for a running back, it's hard for a rookie if you've missed all of training camp and you're showing up that first week of September and now they're going to ask you to play real football games. I think that's a tough adjustment period. Like, I think you have to be cautious with him because he could get out there and he could strain a hamstring. He could hurt a quad. He could do, any number of things could happen if he's not ramped up properly. The guy hasn't played a real football game since January. Like, we're getting to the point where even if he's back like Wednesday, it might be a month until we kind of get that full Quinshon Judkins experience.
Yeah, I think that he's going to need some time to ramp up. Now, the temptation might be to throw him back out there as soon as you can because the running back position translates much easier into an NFL game than some other positions. But still, you have to be ready to pick up the blitz. And if they know that you haven't been practicing and that you haven't been practicing that install for blitz pickup and all of that, they're going to try to exploit that. And they're going to come after you. And they're going to try to make sure that you cannot help protect your quarterback. So he's got to be ready to roll, absolutely ready to roll on this. So I don't think if he shows up Wednesday, I don't know. The temptation would be great to play him, but I just don't know if he would be ready. And again, once he does show up, is the NFL going to put him on the commissioner's exempt list and take him out of the mix anyways? I don't know. I really don't know how this is going to go.
It's been a strange situation, even going back to when it first happened. Like, it's just been weird. So let's get to a couple more questions. This one comes from Wes in Greenboro, North Carolina. Hey, Mary Kay, how far away do you think the Browns are from contending? Just a quarterback or more? Curious to know before the season, which I think people are assuming might be more or less a throwaway. What do you think the team or organization needs to get back to legitimately contending?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you have the quarterback and just everything else that you have right now, if you're getting good quarterback play and the quarterback's not turning it over and you're getting some takeaways, you can challenge for the playoffs this year. I mean, if you took, we can name any number of NFL quarterbacks and put them on this Cleveland Browns team. Let's put Joe Burrow on the Browns right now. I think the Browns would be a playoff team this year, right? Don't you?
I mean, I think it would be in play. And I think the big secret here with the NFL playoffs and 7 teams in each conference is you don't need to be some amazing team to make the playoffs.
Right.
You just have to be the 7th best team in the conference. So we see kind of shaky, sketchy teams in playoff contention deep into the season a lot. So I don't think it's far-fetched to be like, yeah, if you took one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL and put them on this roster, could they contend for a playoff spot? Sure, because you might only need 9 wins.
Yeah, and maybe not. It doesn't even have to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks. Maybe you can take a top 15 or top 12 quarterback and plug him onto this roster and still make the playoffs. So I do think they are a really good quarterback away from contending for the playoffs. Now, Super Bowl, they would probably need a little bit more than that, but it certainly would help. I mean, I actually think a top 5 quarterback could take them to the Super Bowl right now because of what they have on defense. There are a few holes here and there, but because of what they have on defense, because of their running game, because of their offensive line, I think there is a chance that they could contend for a Super Bowl or beat somebody in the playoffs or get through. I'm anxious to see what the skill players are going to be like. Sed needs to have a good season. Jamari is going to need to step up. Harold Fannin is going to have to show what he did in the preseason, but it seems like they have enough skill players. So I think they are a really good quarterback away from being a good contending football team.
It's what you think about a guy like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, even like the Chiefs the last few years haven't had a ton of great weapons around him, but they've been good because they've had a good defense and he just converts every third down. So like, as far-fetched as that might feel, if you take one of those, like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, like one of those superhuman guys and put them on any team, they probably elevate that team 3 or 4 levels, honestly. Those guys are that good. But I think the bigger point here is like, no matter what, no matter how far away you think this team is, and I think there's some underlying things that they have to figure out. Like this whole O-line is pretty much done after this year. They've got to figure out, Joel might retire. Jack, Wyatt, and Ethan are all up after this year. Obviously, they have DeJuan Jones. We'll see if he holds up at left tackle, that would obviously be a big win. So they've got some underlying things they have to figure out like that. But the bottom line is you got to figure out quarterback. So whether that guy is in the building right now or whether that guy is playing college football right now or that guy is going to hit free agency or be available in a trade in the offseason, the most important thing is you've got to figure out that position. And you can't really even have this discussion about like, can this team be a contender until you figure out that position?
Right. And the interesting thing about that, of course, is even when you think that you might have it figured out because you go out and you draft a quarterback that's expected to be the next great thing, even then, you don't know if you hit it right. You don't know if you got it right. There are going to be 5 or 6 potentially first round quarterbacks next year. And it's going to be incumbent upon the Cleveland Browns to pick the right one or one of the right ones. And some of them are going to work out and some of them are not going to work out. And it's really hard to get it right. It's hard for the best and brightest of the NFL to get that right. And so we just don't know. Even if they draft someone that looks like he's supposed to be a world beater in the NFL, you're not going to know until he gets into the NFL and you see how defensive coordinators attack that quarterback and how he processes information and makes decisions. You're not going to know what you have in that quarterback. So even if they go out and get, I don't know, Nussmeier next year, you don't know for sure if he's going to step in and be exactly what they need him to be, a winning quarterback next season. So it could be a little while before they have their man, or maybe they will strike gold with Dylan Gabriel and he can at least get them through a couple of years until they find someone that they think is their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen, an interesting development in the NFL, I think, has been obviously, look, if you can get a Mahomes or an Allen or a Burrow, that's great. That's obviously what you want. But we've seen the Philadelphia Eagles go to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts, who's a really good quarterback. I don't know that he's like a top 5 quarterback. And that's been like a debate all offseason, so I'm not trying to start that firestorm, but he's like a good quarterback who they've built a really nice offense around. They've built a lot of things around his strengths, and he's really successful. So, you don't necessarily have to have the best quarterback in the NFL. I think teams are a little more accepting of this idea of there's only a handful of these guys that exist. So if you can't get one of those guys, get somebody else who's really good and kind of figure it out around that guy. So I think teams are a little more open to that idea now than they've been in the past.
Yeah, and look what the Eagles did with their running game last year and with Saquon. And they didn't rely completely on Jalen Hurts to be their offensive star. So I think that there's another lesson in this, that the running game is back, basically. It's viable, it's back, and it can take you places. And so I think that's just another thing to keep in mind here.
Okay, one more question here, and this one comes from Shannon in Lake Charles, and this has to do with the rookie quarterbacks that the Browns have. Hey, Mary Kay, a lot of talk about the 2 rookies getting and needing playing time at some point this year, no matter what. Shannon, though, has a little bit of that beginning of the season optimism that creeps in every year and wonders, what if Joe Flacco stays healthy, plays well, and the Browns are still in playoff contention late into the season? Would that change their plans to try and get both rookies on the field this season?
Well, I'll tell you what, if they did anything other than keep Joe at quarterback, if they're in the playoff hunt and he's playing well and he's part of the reason why they're there, then they would be absolutely insane. You can't do that to the players on your football team. You can't do that to Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and the veterans. You can't do that to your fan base. So if they are in the hunt, and he is a reason they are in the hunt, then you have to go with who brought you to the dance. You have to keep riding that same horse. So I definitely don't think that they should turn it over to one of the young guys if they are in the thick of the race. You just can't do it. They would just have to figure it out another way or take their chances. At that point, you're just going to have to go with a quarterback next year and then just know that you've got 2 young developmental guys and see how it shakes out in training camp. Your first round pick would probably end up being the starter, and then maybe Dylan's your backup next year, and then you kind of see how it goes. And maybe Shador sticks around as your third, whatever. But certainly if come November, you're still in it, you cannot take Joe out unless he absolutely isn't the reason why you're winning, or you're barely hanging on because of him and can do better at that spot.
Yeah, that would be a great problem to have. The Browns would love to have that problem, to be in playoff contention in December and Joe Flacco playing great. They're not going to complain about that. And I think too, if we are being completely honest, even if they get Dylan Gabriel on the field for 5 games or Shador Sanders on the field for 5 games, it's not going to be enough to tell you, don't draft. And some of this depends on how this draft class plays out. I know it was a little up and down here in the first week of the college season, and some guys were great, others weren't. We don't know who even is going to be in it yet. But I don't think you're going to have a definitive answer, even if those guys play 5 games each. So you're probably still in a position where you're going to think about drafting a quarterback with one of those 2 first round picks regardless. Obviously, you would like to have some info on those 2 guys, and you'd like to have some data points, but you'd also rather make the playoffs. So I think the Browns would be okay with that.
And there might be some games where you can get them some playing time and get them some live action and see how they're processing and see how they're handling things and assimilating your offense and going to the right place with the ball and getting the play called and articulating it and sliding the protections and calling the motions and doing all the things that you have to do. There might be little pockets of time where you can get them that without them necessarily starting 4 games, 5 games, whatever. But I think they are almost in a position right now where if you have 2 first round picks, you have to end up with one of these quarterbacks. I don't think that, even if Dylan exhibits franchise quarterback ability, I'm still taking a quarterback next year in the first round in 2026 with some combination of picks. because they're assets. So if you take one and you end up trading one at some point down the road, so be it. But there's no other position that I would be spending those picks on if I had 2 first-round picks. I just wouldn't be doing that in a rich quarterback class. Because if nothing else, you take a guy, you develop him, and you've got Dylan over here, and he turns out to be really good, and somebody needs a quarterback, maybe they make you an offer you can't refuse. So I'm calling my shot now. I'm taking a quarterback in the first round next year if I'm the Cleveland Browns. If you have to use both of the picks to get him, so be it. But definitely one of those picks has to go to a first round quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's that's where I'm at too. I spent a lot of time this weekend watching these guys, so and we'll spend a lot of the rest of this fall watching these guys as well. So it's going to be an interesting season. But for now, we get to watch the guys that are currently Cleveland Browns because they play a real game on Sunday. And like I said at the top, this is why we do this. This is why we talk about the draft and free agency and training camp and all that stuff. So we are into a game week. We'll have a full week of pods coming your way. We are going to have, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them on this week or not, but Tim and Lance, we're going to do some draft pods throughout the season talking about a lot of these guys. So we will be covering both angles of this as we go along. But these questions were from our Football Insider subscribers. It's cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page to get involved with that and become one of our texters. Find us on Apple and Spotify. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you search Orange and Brown Talk on Apple and Spotify to get subscribed to the pod. If you're listening on the pod and want to be involved with our YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com is our channel. Mary Kay, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds great.